Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is that you found a quiet moment to sit down, put your feet up, and spend a little time with me today. I'm so glad you're here. You know, there's something truly special about that first cup of coffee in the morning, isn't there? Maybe you're holding one right now. I can almost smell it through the screen, that rich, comforting aroma that says, okay, the day has officially begun. For so many of us, especially as we've journeyed through our 60s, 70s, and beyond, that cup of coffee is more than just a drink. It's a ritual. It's a warm hug in a mug. It's a moment of peace before the world wakes up, or a reason to sit and chat with a friend for an hour. But what if I told you that sometimes, it's not the coffee itself that's the problem, but what we're putting into it, or what we're eating alongside it? I want to talk about something today that might surprise you, and it's something that isn't talked about nearly enough, especially for folks in our age group. We're going to have an honest, gentle conversation about coffee, those little extras we love to add, and how certain combinations might be quietly working against our health in a way we don't expect. And when I say working against our health, I'm talking about something serious, an increased risk that can, over time, contribute to cancer. Now, before you even think about putting that mug down, please don't panic. This isn't a scare tactic. This is about awareness. This is about empowerment. This is about taking the things we love and love to do every single day and making tiny, almost invisible adjustments that can have a monumental impact on how we feel and how our bodies thrive as we age. We're going to walk through this together, nice and slow, just like we're sitting at your kitchen table. We'll look at the hidden dangers that can hitch a ride in our favorite morning brew, and more importantly, we'll talk about simple, easy swaps that mean you can still enjoy every last drop, completely guilt-free and with a whole lot more peace of mind. So, let's start at the very beginning. The first thing we need to look at is something that has become a staple in almost every coffee shop, every grocery store aisle, and probably in your own refrigerator door. I'm talking about the creamer. And specifically, I'm talking about those delicious, sweet, flavored liquid creamers. You know the ones, the hazelnut, the French vanilla, the caramel praline. They turn a simple black coffee into a dessert-like treat. And oh, they are tempting. They make the coffee smooth, they make it sweet, and they make it feel like a special indulgence. But here's the thing we don't often see. When we flip that bottle around and look at the ingredients list, it's often a long paragraph of words that are hard to pronounce. Many of these popular creamers are made with a combination of water, sugar, and vegetable oil. To turn that oil and water into that creamy liquid that doesn't separate in your coffee, manufacturers use emulsifiers and stabilizers. But the bigger concern for us, especially as we get older, is what's used to create that creamy texture without using real milk or cream. A lot of these products contain something called partially hydrogenated oils. Now, that's a fancy term for something you've probably heard of, trans fats. For years, the food industry used trans fats because they were cheap, they gave things a great texture, and they made products last a long time on the shelf. But over the last couple of decades, mountains of scientific research have linked these artificial trans fats to some serious health problems. We know they're terrible for our heart health, they raise our bad cholesterol and lower our good cholesterol. But the connection doesn't stop there. There is growing evidence that chronic inflammation, which is fueled by things like trans fats, creates an environment in our bodies where cells can become damaged and, over many years, that damage can potentially lead to cancer. Think of it this way. Your body is a finely tuned machine. Every day, it fights off tiny invaders and repairs little bits of damage. But when we constantly introduce things that cause inflammation, it's like throwing a small pebble into the gears of that machine every single day. One pebble, no problem. The machine sputters for a second and keeps going. But a pebble every day, sometimes multiple times a day? Eventually, the machine starts to wear down. The parts don't fit as well. Things start to break. That's what chronic inflammation does. It wears our cells down over time. And for us, as seniors, our bodies are already working a little harder at that repair process. Our natural defenses, while still strong, aren't operating at the same peak level they were at 30. So, by adding a daily dose of these inflammatory ingredients to our coffee, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're making our bodies work even harder, and we're potentially increasing the risk of those cell mutations that can, in the worst-case scenario, turn cancerous. But it's not just the fake fats. Let's talk about the sugar. Those flavored creamers are loaded with it. And while sugar itself isn't a direct carcinogen, meaning it doesn't directly cause cancer, it feeds something else that is a major risk factor, especially for us. High sugar intake leads to high insulin levels and a condition called insulin resistance. This creates a state in the body where certain growth factors are elevated. And what do cancer cells love more than anything? They love sugar and they love growth factors. They use them as fuel to grow and multiply. So, by spiking our blood sugar every morning with a sugary coffee, we might be inadvertently creating a welcoming environment for unhealthy cells to thrive if they happen to appear. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but I've been doing this for years, and I'm fine. And you probably are fine. You're here, watching this video, being proactive about your health. That's wonderful. This isn't about looking back and worrying about the past. It's about looking forward. It's about saying, okay, I know better now, so I can do better from this point on. Our bodies are incredibly resilient, and they respond so well when we start treating them a little bit better. It's never too late to make a change. Never. So, what's the alternative? Does this mean we have to drink our coffee black and bitter, staring longingly at the empty bottle of hazelnut creamer? Absolutely not. There are wonderful, delicious, and much healthier alternatives. The simplest swap is to go back to basics. Real, actual cream or half and half. Look for products with just 1 or 2 ingredients, cream and milk. That's it. It comes from a cow, it's real food, and your body knows exactly what to do with it. If you like it a little sweet, try a tiny drop of real maple syrup or a bit of honey. You'll be amazed at how a teaspoon of real maple syrup can transform your coffee in a way that's just as satisfying as those artificial flavors, but without the chemical cocktail. Another fantastic option, and this is one of my personal favorites, is a sprinkle of cinnamon. Just a dash on top of your grounds before you brew, or stirred right into your finished cup. Cinnamon adds a natural sweetness and a wonderful warmth, and get this, it's actually good for you. It helps regulate blood sugar. So you're replacing something that could be harmful with something that is actively helpful. That's a win-win if I've ever heard one. We've covered the first big thing to watch out for, those sneaky ingredients in flavored creamers. But our morning coffee ritual often involves more than just what goes in the cup. Often, it's about what goes with the cup. And that brings us to the second piece of this puzzle, and it's a big one. We're going to talk about the sidekick to our coffee, the thing we reach for almost without thinking, and why that combination might be setting us up for trouble. We'll get into all of that right after we take a moment to just let this first part sink in. I hope you're still with me, and I hope that cup of coffee is still warm. Isn't it funny how we pair things together without even thinking? Peanut butter and jelly. Salt and pepper. And for so many of us, coffee and something sweet to go with it. Maybe it's a pastry. Maybe it's a muffin. Maybe it's a couple of cookies. Or perhaps, and this is a very common one for folks in our age group, it's a piece of toast with butter and a generous spread of something sweet like jam or marmalade. There's just something so comforting about that combination, the warmth of the coffee, the satisfying crunch of the toast, or the softness of a baked good. It feels like a reward, a little treat to start the day or to enjoy during a quiet afternoon break. But here's where we need to put on our gentle detective hats again. We've already talked about what we put in the coffee. Now we need to look at what we're eating with the coffee, and specifically, how those two things might be working together in a way that isn't ideal. And the main character in this part of our story is something that's gotten a lot of attention over the years, but maybe not in the context of our senior years, acrylamide. Have you heard of it? It's a big, scientific-sounding word, but the concept is pretty simple. Acrylamide is a chemical that forms naturally in certain foods when they're cooked at high temperatures. Think frying, roasting, baking, those lovely processes that give food that golden brown color and that delicious, toasty flavor. It happens when a natural sugar in the food meets an amino acid called asparagine. And where do we find this combination most often? In plant-based foods that are starchy. So, we're talking about potatoes, think French fries and potato chips. And we're talking about grains, think bread, cereals, coffee itself, and baked goods like cookies, crackers, and pastries. Now, here's the crucial part that connects back to our coffee ritual. Remember how we talked about coffee being a comforting ritual? Well, that comforting toast with jam, or that morning muffin, or those afternoon cookies, they are prime sources of acrylamide. That lovely brown crust on your toast? That's where acrylamide forms. The golden brown top of that blueberry muffin? Same thing. The crispy edges of a baked cookie? You guessed it. So, imagine this common scenario. You pour yourself a cup of coffee. Coffee, by the way, is also a source of acrylamide because the beans are roasted at high temperatures. So you're already getting a small amount from your brew. Then, you reach for that slice of toast, nicely browned, with a pat of butter and some jam. Or you grab a couple of crispy cookies to dunk. Now you're having a double, or even triple, exposure to this compound in a single sitting. And the concern, backed by decades of research from health agencies around the world, is that acrylamide is classified as a probable human carcinogen. That means, based on animal studies, it's a substance that has the potential to cause cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization, lists it in that category. Now, please, I need you to hear me clearly on this. Does having a piece of toast with your coffee mean you're going to get cancer? No, of course not. That's not how this works. Our bodies are amazing at processing and eliminating small amounts of these compounds. The issue, as with so many things in life, is frequency and quantity. It's about the daily accumulation. It's about creating a pattern where, day after day, week after week, we're consistently adding to our body's toxic load. When we're younger, our systems are more robust at clearing these things out. But as we age, our detoxification pathways can become a little less efficient. Our kidneys and liver have been working hard for decades, bless their hearts. They might need a little less work, not more. So, when we habitually combine a food known to contain a potential carcinogen with a beverage that also contains it, we're essentially doubling down. We're making our bodies work overtime. And over the long haul, that constant low-level exposure can contribute to that chronic inflammation and cellular stress we talked about earlier. It's not one big hit, it's the steady drip, drip, drip that wears away the stone. And here's another layer to this that's specifically important for us as seniors. As we age, our risk for certain cancers naturally increases anyway. It's just a statistical fact, our cells have had more time to accumulate potential damage. So, being proactive about reducing unnecessary risks becomes even more important. We can't control our genetics or the fact that we're getting older. But we can absolutely control what we choose to put on our plate. This is one of those areas where we have so much power. So, let's talk about what we can do, because again, this isn't about deprivation. It's not about saying, goodbye forever, toast and cookies. That would just make us miserable, and misery is no way to live. It's about making smarter choices and being a little more mindful. It's about keeping the ritual but changing the details. First, let's talk about toast, since that's such a common one. The amount of acrylamide in toast is directly related to how dark it is. The darker the toast, the more acrylamide has formed. So, the fix is incredibly simple. Instead of toasting your bread until it's a deep, dark brown, aim for a light golden color. Just barely toast it. It still gives you that warmth and that slight crispiness, but it drastically reduces the formation of that compound. It's a tiny change, but it makes a real difference. Second, let's think about those baked goods. When you're at the store, or at your local bakery, you can be a little more selective. Avoid things that look overly browned or burnt on the edges. Choose pastries and muffins that are lighter in color. And here's a wonderful thought. Maybe the thing we pair with our coffee doesn't have to be a processed, baked good at all. What if we reimagined that sidekick entirely? This is where we can get creative and actually enhance our enjoyment. Instead of a cookie, what about a small handful of walnuts or almonds? The healthy fats in nuts are fantastic for our brain health, something we all care deeply about as we get older. They provide a satisfying crunch that pairs beautifully with the smoothness of coffee. Instead of a sugary pastry, what about a few slices of a crisp apple or a pear? The natural sweetness and the fiber are so good for our digestion. Or, if you're craving something warm and comforting, a small bowl of oatmeal, not from a packet with added sugar, but the old-fashioned kind, with a few berries on top. That's a sidekick that's fighting for your health, not against it. And for those times when you really, truly want a cookie, have the cookie. Enjoy every single bite. The key is that it becomes an occasional treat, not a daily habit. When we make these foods the exception rather than the rule, our bodies can handle them without breaking a sweat. It's all about balance and shifting our everyday patterns toward foods that nourish us. So we've looked at the hidden dangers in our creamers, and we've looked at the surprising risk that can come from the foods we pair with our coffee. There's one more piece of this puzzle, and it's something that might be the biggest surprise of all. It has to do with the vessel we drink from, the cup itself. You might think a cup is just a cup, but depending on what it's made of and how old it is, it could be introducing something into your daily brew that you definitely don't want. We'll dive into that right now. Isn't it amazing how we can go our whole lives using something every single day, never giving it a second thought, and then suddenly realize there's a whole story behind it? That's exactly where we're headed now. We've talked about the creamer and the pastries, the things we add and the things we nibble alongside. But now, let's look at the container itself. The mug. The cup. The thing we wrap our hands around for that warm, comforting feeling. This might sound a little strange at first, but stick with me, because this is one of those hidden factors that scientists have been studying for years. I'm talking about the material your cup is made of. Specifically, I'm talking about ceramic mugs and the glaze that coats them. Now, most of us have a favorite mug, don't we? Maybe it's one your children gave you years ago with a funny saying on it. Maybe it's a beautiful, handmade ceramic piece from a craft fair. Maybe it's just that one perfect mug that holds exactly the right amount and feels good in your hands. Here's what we don't often think about. That glossy, beautiful finish on a ceramic mug is a glaze. And for many decades, glazes were made using all sorts of materials to achieve certain colors and that glass-like, non-porous finish. One of those materials, which is still used in some parts of the world today, is lead. Lead is a heavy metal, and we've known for a long time that it's toxic, especially to the nervous system. But the risk doesn't stop there. Lead is also classified as a probable carcinogen. Long-term exposure, even at low levels, can accumulate in the body and contribute to a whole host of health problems, including an increased cancer risk. Now, in the United States, Canada, and most European countries, regulations for commercial dinnerware have become much stricter. Lead is no longer supposed to be used in glazes for items that will hold food or drink. But here's the catch. If you have older mugs, especially ones that are handmade, imported from countries with looser regulations, or are vintage pieces from decades ago, there's a chance that the glaze contains lead. And every time you pour hot, acidic coffee into that mug, it can act like a gentle solvent, slowly leaching tiny amounts of that lead out of the glaze and into your drink. Day after day, year after year, that's a source of exposure we never asked for. And it's not just lead. There's another concern with some older or cheaper ceramic glazes: cadmium. Cadmium is used to create bright red, orange, and yellow colors. So if you have a beautiful mug with a vibrant, hand-painted design in those colors, it's worth being a little curious about. Cadmium is also a heavy metal and a known carcinogen, particularly linked to lung cancer, but it can also accumulate in the kidneys and bones. Think about it. You're doing everything right. You've switched to a healthy creamer. You're enjoying a piece of lightly toasted bread or some fruit with your coffee. You're being so mindful. But if your coffee is being subtly contaminated by the very cup it's in, you're still fighting an uphill battle. It's like planting a beautiful garden but watering it with polluted water. The source matters. Now, I don't want anyone to panic and throw out every mug in their cupboard. That's not the goal here. The goal is awareness and making informed choices going forward. So, what can we do about this? First, we can be a little more thoughtful about which mugs we use for our daily coffee. If you have mugs that are obviously very old, maybe they were your parents' or grandparents', and they have that antique charm, perhaps reserve those for display or for cold drinks, or just for decoration. They hold memories, and that's precious. But for your daily, hot coffee, it's worth investing in something newer that you know is safe. Second, when you're buying new mugs, look for ones that are clearly marked as lead-free and cadmium-free. Many contemporary potters and ceramic artists take great care to use safe materials and will proudly label their work as such. Even commercial brands are much better about this now than they were 50 years ago. If you're at a craft fair and fall in love with a handmade mug, don't be afraid to ask the artist, what kind of glaze do you use? Is it lead-free? A good artist will be happy to tell you about their process. Another wonderful and completely safe alternative is glass. A simple glass mug, especially the double-walled kind that keeps your coffee hot without burning your hands, is an excellent choice. Glass is inert. It doesn't leach anything into your drink. It's easy to clean, and you can see the beautiful color of your coffee. It's a clean, fresh start every single time. Stainless steel travel mugs are another fantastic option, especially if you're on the go. They're durable, safe, and keep your coffee hot for hours. So, let's bring this all together, because we've covered a lot of ground, and I want you to walk away feeling empowered, not overwhelmed. We started our conversation with those tempting, flavored creamers and the hidden trans fats and sugars that can fuel inflammation and create an environment where unhealthy cells can thrive. We talked about making the simple, delicious swap to real cream or half and half, maybe with a tiny drop of honey or a sprinkle of cancer-fighting cinnamon. Then, we moved on to the foods we pair with our coffee, and we learned about acrylamide, that compound that forms when starchy foods are browned at high temperatures. We discovered that by simply toasting our bread to a light golden color instead of a dark brown, we can significantly reduce our exposure. And we got creative, thinking about pairing our coffee with brain-healthy nuts or fiber-rich fruit instead of pastries and cookies, turning our coffee break into a moment of true nourishment. And finally, we looked at the cup itself. We uncovered the potential risk of lead and cadmium leaching from old or imported ceramic glazes into our hot, acidic coffee. And we realized that switching to a clear glass mug or a safe, modern ceramic mug is a simple, one-time change that removes that hidden risk forever. You see, this whole journey has been about the power of small things. It's not about making huge, drastic, overwhelming changes to your life. It's about looking at the rituals you already love, the habits you already have, and polishing them just a little bit. It's about turning something that might have a hidden downside into something that is purely positive. It's about taking that moment of peace with your coffee and making it a moment of health, too. You deserve to enjoy your life, and you deserve to enjoy it fully, with vitality and with peace of mind. You've spent decades taking care of others, building a life, creating memories. Now, this part of the journey, this chapter, is about taking that same loving care and turning it inward. It's about honoring your body, not with restriction and rules, but with gentle, informed choices that add up over time. Remember, our bodies listen to everything we do. They respond to kindness. They respond to real food. They respond to the warmth of a safe mug and the comfort of a nourishing ritual. Every single time you choose real cream over an artificial creamer, every time you reach for a handful of almonds instead of a cookie, every time you pour your coffee into a beautiful glass mug, you're sending your body a message. You're saying, I love you. I'm grateful for you. And I'm going to do what I can to help you stay strong and healthy. That's a beautiful message to send, and it's one that your body will hear loud and clear. It's never too late to start. It's never too late to make a change. The simple fact that you sat through this entire conversation, that you cared enough to learn, tells me everything I need to know about you. You're a person who values life, who wants to feel good, who wants to be there for the people you love for as long as possible. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, as you go about your week, I invite you to just notice. Notice what's in your creamer bottle. Notice the color of your toast. Notice the mug you reach for. And with each little noticing, you have an opportunity. An opportunity to make a choice that feels good, that is good, and that adds another brick to the foundation of your long-term health. I would absolutely love to hear from you. What did you think about this? Is there a special mug in your cupboard that you're now looking at a little differently? Have you tried cinnamon in your coffee? Come on down to the comments section and share your thoughts, your stories, your questions. This is a conversation, and your voice is such an important part of it. And if you found this helpful, if it made you think, or if it just felt like a warm, friendly chat over a cup of coffee, would you do me a favor? Would you hit that like button? It really helps more people find these conversations. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and tapping that bell icon. That way, we can continue these little chats, and you won't miss a single one. We have so much more to talk about, so many simple, powerful ways to make these years the healthiest and happiest yet. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, savor those small moments, and here's to your health, your happiness, and many more peaceful, joyful cups of coffee. Take care, my friend.